Hi, everyone, and welcome to the AwardsWatch Oscar podcast. This is podcast number 34. It is Sunday, January 7th, so that can only mean one thing. This is the Oscar nomination reaction podcast. So much to talk about. So much. Today, I have with me two Gold Rush Gang members. I have Evan and Kenneth. Hello, boys.
Hi.
Hello, thanks for having us today.
Of course. Thanks for being on. All right, let's dive into it. I don't think it was too much of a shock for anyone that Mad Max and The Revenant ended up with the most nominations of the day. But let's talk a little bit about some of at least the good surprises. Plenty of conversation has been had over the snubs, both based on gender and race, but let's for the moment talk about some of the positive elements. And I think, at least for most of us on the podcast, that would have to be Lenny Abramson's directing nomination. Would you guys agree?
Yes, I would. That was definitely, I think, in the terms of the top 8 categories, that was definitely the biggest shock, I think.
Yeah.
And less in terms of like someone being snubbed, but in terms of who was included, because obviously it was disappointing to see Carol miss, but in terms of like a surprise nomination, that was definitely the biggest shock. Because I think early on in the season, when we were thinking that, I think most of us were thinking that he may have a shot, but as the film started to underperform with the guilds and then didn't, light up at BAFTA, we were feeling, like that was definitely outside the realm of possibility heading into the nominations announcement. So that was definitely a pleasant surprise especially in terms of what was a great morning for A24 overall as a kind of a new player in the Oscar game.
Yeah,
I think they had 7 nominations total. Four for Room, Picture, Director, Lead Actress, and Adapted Screenplay, 2 for Ex Machina, Visual Effects, and Original Screenplay. They obviously missed the Vikander nomination in Supporting Actress, although, for all we know, she could have had enough votes to be nominated there. She just canceled herself out with Danish Girl.
Yeah, definitely. And then Amy.
And then Amy, of course. So they definitely had a great kind of Oscar debut.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised by Amy getting in, because the nature of the doc nominating committee over the last few years has been to very clearly intentionally snub the frontrunner. And since now the entire Academy can vote on the winners. So it getting in was just a fantastic surprise. I loved that.
I totally agree. I don't know. I think, Eric, you and I had this conversation, more towards the first half of the season about how Amy just seemed to be that film that was destined to get, generate all this critical acclaim and then be, snubbed by the documentary branch.
Yeah.
But now, like you said, now that the entire AMPAS body will vote for the winners, it has to be the clear favorite to win, I would think.
Absolutely. I agree.
Which is great.
I was really happy about what happened with Simone being nominated. That was my favorite. One of my favorite nominations probably of the morning. That was just a really great get, and it's Radius, right?
No, that's Netflix.
Okay,
that's
so
Netflix.
Well, Netflix is just really good at getting these documentary nominations. I guess we'll have to see if they had better elsewhere, but
I think for Netflix, it's like they really know. I mean, obviously, some What Happened Miss Simone had names involved that are very well connected in that branch.
Yeah,
but I do think that Netflix does well in this category because they actually, spend quite a bit of money campaigning their films here, which other studios don't tend to do.
Right.
So
true.
They actually, work hard to try to get these nominations there. So and make sure the films are seen and that the buzz stays high. So I think that they definitely are rewarded for putting in more effort in this category.
But Radius did have a nomination here this year, no? I thought it did. Maybe I'm wrong.
Let's see. Look of Silence, Cartel Land. I don't. No, Winter on Fire is not.
I
either.
thought it might have.
No, I believe the only Radius film in contention was Hunting Ground, and it was snubbed.
There you go. That was what I was thinking of.
Yes, and Macbeth.
Yeah.
Right.
which Jacqueline Duran, one of our, favorites, potential surprises.
Yep.
Missed out.
Yeah, that did not turn out quite as well. But then look, in that category, the surprise nominee was Jacqueline West for The Revenant.
Yeah.
Because that film just completely overperformed. My goodness. Do you guys have any other favorites of the nomination morning before we kind of start drilling into everything?
I mean, I was really happy for Charlotte Rampling, even though most people were predicting her to happen. Obviously, it was still kind of tenuous in the sense that she had like very little precursor support, but that was a really great nomination. And another one that, even though I didn't love this performance, I was really happy for Jennifer Jason Leigh finally getting recognized.
Yes, me too. That would be mine as well. The obstacle for her and Stallone to get to this point was pretty major, so I was pretty happy both of them got in.
Yeah, I think for everyone on, for all three of us that followed the Oscar races in the 90s, been burnt. Jennifer Jason Leigh has been burned, on at least 3 occasions where she was genuinely in the race in the 90s.
Yep.
And it was great to see her make it in, especially in light of how Harvey kind of underperformed overall. Not a great year for him. So, not even able to get, Tarantino nominated for screenplay, for example. So
it was a pretty low year for Weinstein this year.
And the obvious miss for Carol in picture and director on top of that.
Yeah, wasn't it 2007 the last time that Weinstein didn't have a picture in?
Yep.
That's a long streak to break for this year. It's unfortunate. All right. I think we can kind of really just go right into a bit of our early predictions, because even though the guilds have yet to speak, and over the next 2 weeks we'll hear from them, or 3 weeks with DGA 2, I think there's already a lot of up in the air elements. We've got Revenant and Mad Max competing in exactly the same categories, except for the 2 acting ones that the Revenant got. And that to me is going to be pretty exciting, even more than what actually ends up winning Best Picture, because I kind of feel like they're either going to split pretty evenly, or one film is just going to take them all. Do you guys have a thought with that? I mean, I can see what your predictions are, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. I mean, for whatever reason, I don't know why exactly, I think that The Revenant overperformed with nominations, but I actually think it's going to underperform in terms of wins. Maybe not underperform, but like just not do as well as it did in the nomination stage. And I think that Mad Max is going to ultimately leave Oscar night with the most wins out of any film, even though it's not going to win anything above the line.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think that we could be looking at the way that Gravity ended up with 7, but the important movie won the 3 top awards or bigger awards?
That's what I'm thinking at the moment.
Yeah. It seems to be a lot of us within the Gold Rush gang are looking to Spotlight as still the Best Picture frontrunner.
Yeah. I would think, this is one of those years where I think that, it's not especially clear right now. For all we know, The Revenant could have may have already completely taken over the Best Picture race, and we're just not seeing it yet, because once the guilds announce, will obviously become clear. And it's, it's making waves at the box office. It has the Best Actor winner. It is the kind of the historical, showy epic of the bunch. Mm-hmm. But I do tend to kind of fall back to Spotlight. I do think that's a movie that mostly everybody really likes. And I think that it, while it has, there are some, it has underperformed at, in the past few weeks. Obviously missing at Ace was a big deal. And then missing the director nomination at BAFTA, especially when you look back at, the films that have won Best Picture at the Oscars and not gotten a director nomination at BAFTA. I think it's been, quite a long time since that's happened. I believe since the early '90s. I think was what someone had pointed out. But it definitely performed well enough in the nominations to keep itself in the running spotlight. I mean,
yes.
For the Oscar nominations, I think it had as basically as good of morning as it could have hoped for. I think with picture, director, double supporting acting nominations was a sort of a terrific outcome in light of the fact that many were wondering if it would receive any. And then obviously the editing nomination was huge too.
Yeah, those that you just mentioned are exactly what I think have people keeping it still in the frontrunner status. If it had missed, both acting and editing, obviously we wouldn't be having that conversation. But I mean, it still might have had a good shot even without Ruffalo and McAdams getting in. But so I have no qualms for anybody's prediction of Spotlight winning. I'm just sticking with the Revenant now, so that I can call it early. If PGA comes along and gives it the spotlight, I'll switch in a heartbeat.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, it's really as wide open as I can remember, because even though say last year everyone is saying, the guilds showed us something different, but last year at this point everybody thought Boyhood was winning.
Absolutely.
Everybody. And yes, the guilds kind of flipped that, but what I'm saying is that at this point there's basically 3 films that everyone is split amongst. So we'll see what the PGA does, and obviously that will give us some kind of indication. But at the moment, we're all split, and I don't remember that ever happening going into the guilds like this.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, and it's weird kind of watching people scramble around and try and create a narrative for their prediction, and sometimes it's a little bit silly. Because I've seen people saying that The Revenant and Mad Max will cancel each other out, that Spotlight and Big Short could cancel each other out. It's
absurd.
Well, then Room wins Best Picture.
That's what I was just going to say. Then Room wins Best Picture, and there you go.
I also read that analysis, if you can call it that, of Spotlight and The Big Short canceling each other out, and I was like, that's completely absurd. These movies are nothing alike.
No, and that's just not how things happen.
Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Even if they were alike, it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. It kind of drives me crazy. It drives me crazy.
So Eric, you're going to stick with The Revenant until it becomes clear that it's not happening.
I'll do it just up to PGA. I'm not gonna go against the PGA.
Okay.
I think that would be a little crazy. But I feel like if The Revenant had not been a box office hit, because it was tracking or being predicted at 20 and high teens, and then it opens just under 40, and that was a huge deal. So that to me is something that the Producers Guild can really grab onto, because it justifies huge budgets and movies that go over budget, which is apparently now the controversy that someone is trying to stir against the Revenant right now, that the $135 million budget is not the real budget, and that it's probably closer to $200 million, and that is somehow going to be so huge that it topples any chance of it winning, which is crazy, obviously.
Yeah.
True, because it's doing very well at the box office, and I see no reason why it wouldn't continue to do well over the the course of the next 6 weeks or so. Beating up to the Oscar nomination.
And same goes for Spotlight and Big Short, which are doing very well.
Yeah. And The Big Short is another one that we haven't really mentioned, but it is also in the hunt for Best Picture and did very well in the nominations as well. With picture, director, acting, screenplay, and editing.
Yes, definitely. But let me ask you guys, in your predictions right now, do you have The Big Short winning anything outside, or at least leading, outside of adapted screenplay?
I don't, but I could potentially see it winning editing. But that's it.
I think I have that. I think I have it in third, but I do see 1, 2, 3 Gold Rush gang members that have The Big Short in first for editing. And I'm going to get these all out hopefully on Monday for everybody to see. I know we're just talking about them a little behind the scenes right now, but once I get everybody to submit their predictions in, I'm gonna get those out this week to show everyone. But yeah, I can see it. I think it's in the running.
It definitely has very showy editing. With that said, if it's not winning Best Picture, I do wonder if like the overall body might just vote for something that is seemingly more tech heavy, you know, and assume that is, you know, the kind of the editing choice would be the, you know, something. Of course, there's several options in that front in the category too. You know, with Star Wars nominated, obviously Mad Max would seem to be the beneficiary of something like that as well.
Yeah. Again, in looking at everybody's predictions, people have Spotlight, you know, winning Best Picture, but in editing, it's in like mostly fourth place. Yeah, and that Mad Max and The Revenant and Big Short are kind of all battling it out for having, you know, bigger and flashier editing.
Yeah, and I mean, editing is an interesting category, and we've had this discussion the last couple of days on the forum in the sense that The Big Short is very, very showy, and someone compared it to Whiplash, and I get that, but Whiplash last year really did not have this kind of huge tech-heavy sort of juggernaut that it was competing against.
Yeah. And
The Big Short this year has two of those. And I just get the sense that Mad Max is such a huge spectacle in every way across the board as far as the techs are concerned, and that I just think that the overall membership is just going to tick it off in mostly every category, just because it's such a sort of like this magnificent sort of creation, and people are just going to go tick, 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 tick down the line for every single category that it's nominated in, I think.
Yeah. What do you guys think about that, you know, of these, you know, big films, Big Short, Spotlight, Revenant, and Star Wars are all still in theaters, so they're more in the conversation than something like Mad Max? Would you agree? I don't know. I wonder if films that are in current release now have a bit of a leg up on.
You mean because like people are still kind of the audiences are still discovering them and, you know, generating buzz through that and whatnot?
Yeah, and because it'll always, you know, it'll have box office articles every week, and it will just there's always going to be something to talk about with each of these movies. But I mean, because look what happened with Mad Max and the Critics Awards. It was, you know, it was a summer movie that did pretty well, and then there was really not much to talk about, and then Critics Awards started popping up, and then it became in the conversation again. So I don't know if it kind of sort of needs to do well with the other guilds to come back in the conversation.
And I imagine it actually will do well with the guilds. I think that it's going to win a number of them, like the ADG. I can see it winning. The Costume Designers Guild, I can see it winning in its category. It's going to win Ace, I think, in its category. I could see it winning the Cinematographers Guild. John Seal is a legend, and I think that Lubeski winning 3 years in a row might be a little bit difficult for him. So I actually think it's going to do very well with the guilds.
I think that cinematography, both with the guild and the Oscars, is going to be the most contentious between those two films of everything that they're going up against. I'm most excited to see who triumphs over that, because it's either going to be a person that wins 3 times in a row, or it's going to be someone that was brought out of semi-retirement to do this film.
And that's why I think that the overall Academy at large probably doesn't maybe realize that, but the Guild, I'm assuming, knows that.
Yes.
And that's why I would still give John Seal a bit of a leg up there, because he's a huge name that came out of retirement, and he hasn't won the last 2 years, like Lubeski.
Yes. Yeah, I'm most excited about that.
And as good as Lubeski is, I mean, John Seale's work on Mad Max is absolutely gorgeous, you know. So I'm definitely rooting for him. So we'll see how it shakes out.
I totally agree.
And that's kind of also interesting, because I mean, we always say, the Academy usually votes for like the prettier cinematography, and I would say neither Mad Max or The Revenant are kind of overtly pretty in the way that we think pretty is, but I would say that Mad Max is actually the more, like you could say, the more beautiful kind of like.
You get all those big landscapes and Revenant
So.
and whatnot. So.
Yeah. All right, I want to look at a category because we have a lot of these that it looks like we're all in a good amount of agreement. So there's not a whole lot of conversation to be had there. But let's look at a couple of them that have a smattering of support with at least 2 or 3 people. And Best Supporting Actress is one of them. Because right now, Alicia Vikander has the most votes for a win right now with the Gold Rush Gang. And then Kate Winslet has a couple, including from you, Kenneth. And then I, again, am sitting on the outside because I'm a total idiot. And I have Rooney Mara winning. Which I know everybody will say, this is not a winning performance. What are you doing? This is crazy. But I don't have a place where Carol is kind of a front runner anywhere. And it's totally possible that it would be the movie that has the most nominations and wins nothing. But I don't know. That's kind of what I'm feeling right now.
No, I actually think the movie that has the most nominations and wins nothing will be The Martian. Doesn't it have 7?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
And I don't think it's winning anything, so.
No, I don't think The Martian's winning anything. But, all right, so tell me, because all 3 of us have different actresses at number 1 for this. Yeah. And I'd like to hear each of your guys' thoughts and what the potential is with SAG and BAFTA potentially changing that.
Well, I mean, I obviously think if we're going on who's the most deserving, it's Rooney Mara hands down, regardless if it's category fraud or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I just think that it's, at least to me, maybe I'm wrong. To me, it's clear at this point that Carol is not going to win anything. Either at the Oscars where it underperformed or at BAFTA where it overperformed. I just don't think it's first in any single category that it's nominated in. It's probably not even second in most of them.
Ouch. Yeah.
So that's just and again, this is going by trying to be as objective as possible because it is my favorite film of the year. So I'm just telling you how what I'm seeing and how the race has unfolded thus far. As far as winning goes, it does look like it's between Alicia Vikander and Kate Winslet, and I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just overreacting to the Globes win, but I just think Winslet makes so much sense to me here. I think it's the baitiest role of the nominees, regardless of. I know that Vikander has a very typical role for this category, but I just think in terms of baitiness, I think Winslet has it. She's going to campaign an obscene amount in the next month. She clearly to me it looked like when she won the Globe, it almost looked like she didn't think she had a chance here, and she was kind of resigned to that. She was like, going to be okay, so I'll get my nominations and I'll kind of move along. But now that she actually won, I feel like she thinks she has an opening, and she really kind of really wants it, and she's going to really go for it really, really hard. And I just don't think people really ultimately care about Vikander at all.
But the thing about Kate Winslet is that would she have won the Globe if Alicia Vikander for The Danish Girl and Rooney Mara and Carol were competing in that same category? She hasn't actually competed against them yet for a major award.
She hasn't, no.
So you don't know how that comes into play. I mean, it could be that those 2 have so much more support and they just default. I don't want to say defaulted, but they went with a name that they know and like there. Not that Vikander wasn't also nominated for Ex Machina, but maybe there just isn't the same level of support for that, being a less traditional role. But I do think that, but regardless of the reason behind her winning, Kate Winslet has won a Globe and is now generating a lot of press and getting people talking about her as potential winner of the Globes. They basically validated her as a potential winner in this open category, so that counts for a lot, I think. Now it's also true that the Academy doesn't seem to be especially fond of Steve Jobs, given it only got nominations from the acting branch. but the rest. It's not like the rest of the films are super well liked either. I mean, obviously Carol, like you mentioned, Eric, is the nominations leader in this category with 6 nominations.
Spotlight.
Oh, Spotlight also has 6. Yeah.
Yes.
But I don't know if anyone's really considering Rachel McAdams. Just not a sort of enough meat there. I don't think to really compete for an Oscar win. It seemed to me to be more of a very traditional kind of coattail nomination for a strong film.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the Screen Actors Guild is obviously going to tell us a lot because we have 4 of the nominees there. Yeah. So I will look to that for sure.
Yeah.
But I feel like one of the benefits that Mara has is that she's a previous nominee. I don't think any of them are going to do the level of campaigning that Winslet can do. But then at the same time, it almost feels like her win for the reader was like, okay, fine, here you go, we're done. And they don't need to give her anything anymore. At least that's kind of what I'm hoping.
And and I think, Eric, you can agree or disagree, but I also generally feel that when people are winning second Oscars, there's more of this kind of like undeniable vibe, like, yeah, she's going to win, where it's not like, I feel like you don't win second Oscars by just being like, well, who else do we give it to, Well, but I don't know. I mean, obviously there are cases where someone's won a second Oscar and it became more obvious as the season went on, maybe someone like Hilary Swank, although that was more because the movie was very late breaking than anything. But I don't know. The only thing that gives me pause is that I don't know if people are really going to feel like, that she should win a second Oscar for Steve Jobs. But like we've been saying, it's a very open category, and she's very well liked. This is her 7th Oscar nomination. I don't think many people would be too, upset at the thought of her having 2 Oscars, with her 7 nominations. So. And we know she'll campaign.
And I mean, and that's really the thing, is the fact that obviously in a different year, nobody would even think about her winning a second Oscar for this movie. But as usual, Oscars are all about timing. And she just landed in a year that's extremely open. I mean, again, when the alternative is Alicia Vikander in The Danish Girl, a movie that nobody cares about, an actress that's just basically just there, why wouldn't she? I mean, we all had Alicia Vikander kind of as a front runner, as a clear front runner before the Globes, kind of also for the same reason.
Yeah.
Because it was an open year, and she was kind of the consensus choice because she had a bunch of movies, and everyone just kind of felt like, oh, okay. And now the Globes gave you sort of an opening to award a huge star having a comeback, sort of stretching herself, which is definitely part of her narrative, how she had this accent and she kind of looked different and things like that. And she's milking it for all it's worth. And again, if The Danish Girl obviously was a film that people cared about, I would say absolutely she's just going to win. But you can't come with the argument that, oh, no one cares about Steve Jobs when the alternative is Alicia Vikander in The Danish Girl.
Sure. I agree with that. I mean, I think Kate Winslet definitely has a lot in her favor. And, Vikander is, she still is a largely, unknown actress. This is her first nomination. And, yes, she did kind of run the table with Critics Awards for Ex Machina, but she's won very little for this performance, actually.
Yeah, very little.
Very little. And I don't know if, a first-time winner needs, a bit more buzz. I don't know if, someone on their first nomination in a film that wasn't especially well-liked is just, I don't know if they're like, oh yeah, we're going to go with her, when she has not really won much else for this performance.
It's when I think about this type of role and when it wins, I mean, the first one I'm thinking of is Jennifer Connelly, but she was also in the eventual Best Picture winner. So The Danish Girl is not that. So sure. there isn't a whole lot of
momentum behind the movie.
No. Or for a win for her.
True. And although she could, I will go back to the fact that with the category confusion, it's very possible that she may have won the Globe in supporting if she was placed there for the Danish Girl, but she obviously didn't. So
that being said, the Globes also clearly liked Steve Jobs a lot, so she might have not won regardless. I mean, and even you bring up Jennifer Connelly, which is exactly the performance that I think of when I think of Alicia Vikander and the Danish Girl, but even someone like Jennifer Connelly was a lot more well known in Hollywood than Vikander.
Exactly.
She's been around for for years at that point, since she was a lot younger and kind of maybe she hadn't had a breakthrough yet, but she was there. And this girl is completely brand new. And most of the time, I mean, again, this category is not averse to awarding first-time nominees at all, especially when they're an ingenue. But again, the film is usually stronger. 12 Years a Slave, even something like Dreamgirls was a lot stronger than The Danish Girl.
Yes, absolutely. I almost want to I want to make a case for Jennifer Jason Leigh to win. I really do. And it's the same one, although, slightly different, as Sylvester Stallone. Because my biggest thing for each of them was getting this nomination was going to be the hardest part. Yeah. And next to Winslet, Jennifer Jason Leigh is campaigning the most by far. She's actually done quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I know that we have talked about that this role and performance is just not the kind of thing that could possibly win because it's just so out there, insane and bloody and awful. But I don't know. I want to make a case for her to win. That her long history of being in films and never getting to this point, and now she's here. I don't know, because that's pretty much what Stallone's win is. Yeah. And they're not the same. I realize that, but
I mean, if there's a shocker in this category on Oscar night, it probably will be her, just because I don't think Mara is winning, and I guess McAdams, even though I was kind of thinking that for a little bit that her film is strong, so maybe she'll win just because they like the movie and they'll kind of vote for her here, but that's probably not going to happen. So JJL would be the sort of big surprise, but I can't see it happening for this role because Stallone does. That's a good comparison, but he has a very, very Oscar-friendly role.
Absolutely.
But I will say, and one thing I would add to that is probably true for both Rooney Mara and Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's just looking at the Weinstein factor. I don't know. I guess we'll see. I don't know how much he's going to be campaigning in Phase 2, given the underperformance of his films. But with that being said, he surely has to see an opening in supporting actress, and it's a very open category. So I will be curious to see kind of the two, if he kind of clearly prioritizes one of them to push for the win.
Yeah, and I hope he does. I hope there is something that we get to see something exciting. Well, then let me throw out this scenario. So Winslet won the Globe. Let's say Vikander wins SAG, and Jennifer Jason Leigh wins BAFTA. Who wins?
In that case, I probably would not go with Winslet.
Mm-hmm.
But who wins that one? I don't know. I don't know. That being said, I really don't think Jennifer Jason Leigh is winning the BAFTA.
I know. I'm just
right. No.
For argument's sake, since she's not SAG nominated.
I honestly have no idea.
But at the end of the day, I kind of hope we get something crazy like that. It would be, I can't remember the last time we had a really open acting category in the way it would be in the scenario you're describing on Oscar night. So I think it would be kind of fun, and everybody's head would explode trying to predict it, and that's always fun too.
Well, I kind of think supporting actor has the potential to be as crazy.
Cool. Well, then we can go right over to supporting actor, because that actually does have a little bit of movement around within the Gold Rush gang. Sylvester Stallone is the front runner, but we've got Mark Ruffalo right behind, and then Mark Rylance right behind him. So that's actually, Kenneth, you are predicting Mark Ruffalo, and you're the only one not predicting Stallone to win at this point. Yeah. Which is totally fair. If you have Spotlight winning, you're looking at at the addition of other wins.
Right.
It makes total sense.
Well, I mean, I think Stallone is the front runner, but that just goes to show you the craziness of this race when you have the front runner for the Oscar not nominated at the SOGs or BAFTA. Mm-hmm. So that right away throws this race into kind of like chaos because the person who everyone thinks is going to win has no shot of winning either one of those two really major high-profile awards.
Oh yeah, only 2 of the 5 in this category are nominated at the SAGs.
Right, exactly.
It's crazy.
Exactly. So I do think that BAFTA and SAG will be really, really interesting. Obviously, at SAG, it's between Bale and Rylance.
Yes.
It would, I guess, on one hand, it would make sense that Bale is going to win because he has that, they obviously like the movie that has the ensemble nominee. I'm not really sure I buy that. I think Rylance has had a really big head start in terms of people actually talking about him up as a potential winner, and no one is talking about Bale winning anything until like today, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know about him actually winning that. And then BAFTA, it really could also be Rylance as well because he's British, veteran, well-respected. They loved Bridge of Spies.
Yes, they did.
So that would make sense there. So I can see how he could go into Oscar night having those 2 wins, and then Stallone having the Globe, and it would kind of look like it's between the 2 of them. And then out of nowhere, here comes Mark Ruffalo, who is on his 3rd nomination, very well liked, respected, has worked with everybody. No one dislikes Mark Ruffalo. Even if whatever you think about his performance in this film, everyone still in general likes him. And clearly they like him. I mean, we didn't really like his performance, but like they did, the Academy, I mean.
Yes.
So
and BAFTA.
And BAFTA, right. So I just think that I could kind of see him coming through, especially because if the film does win Best Picture, like I think it will, in an open race like that, where like there are, I guess, Rylance and Stallone would look like the front runners, but no one is overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I could see a popular actor in a popular film just kind of coming through.
Yeah, it would end up like 12 Years a Slave was, where you've got picture, you have a screenplay win, and you have 1 acting win.
Even though I think that Spotlight isn't completely out of it in director either.
Okay, true. Yes, you're right. I was working on the comparison that it could potentially not win that, and then we'd see yet another split.
Right, but it might not, and I mean 3 wins for Spotlight would make perfect, like the same kind of 12 Years a Slave wins would make perfect sense to me.
Yeah. My goodness. So yeah, I agree with you. I can actually see Mark Rylance winning both SAG and BAFTA, and then Stallone coming in being the James Coburn, Jack Palance, Don Amici, or whatever comparison you want to make, and winning this sort of career award.
Yeah. But
they're certainly not afraid of, rewarding people like Mark Rylance. But
I guess even someone like J.K. Simmons would be similar to Mark Rylance in a way, kind of like a long-time sort of working character actor that like no one ever really thought would win anything and then just suddenly does.
Yeah.
You know what I was going to say, Eric, was in terms of the supporting actor race, because it obviously does have a lot of, it doesn't have while Stallone is the front runner, I agree it's not like a closed race, we can't close the book on it, but is I do wonder what kind of campaigning Mark Rylance will do in phase 2, and whether that will have any impact on the race or not, because he did very little in phase 1.
I was just going to say, would it help? But yeah.
He did very little, so I do wonder, is there a sense that he's going to have to work for it if he's going to get it? I don't know.
I kind of think so, because Bridge of Spies did okay. It did better at BAFTA, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But just okay.
But even it's not a film that anyone's going to be like, oh, we need to give this film an award somewhere.
Yeah.
No one's going to feel that way.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like, what is it, 2012, where every Best Picture nominee won something except for Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, boy.
And it's an interesting category because I feel like of the 5 nominees, 3 of them look like they just will not do any campaigning at all.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hardy and Christian Bale will do absolutely nothing. I can stake my life on it. Like, not a thing. I would be really surprised if they really did anything other than like show up for like the awards they're nominated for.
Yeah, and maybe only some. Yeah,
right.
Not even necessarily that.
And then Rylance will maybe do a little bit more, but something similar. And then we have Stallone, who will basically shake hands from every person and kiss every baby in L.A.
Oh, I think he'll go to everything that he's not even nominated for.
Oh, absolutely.
Just to be there.
He'll be there. Oh, for sure.
He'd be crazy not to.
Right. He needs to. Basically, he has to.
He does.
To keep his sort of like momentum alive.
Because there is a full month before the Oscars, and he's got no other nominations ahead of him other than BFCA tonight, but we won't really talk about that.
Right. And I imagine that Ruffalo will do a decent amount as well. I don't think he's going to do like as much as Stallone, but he won't do like nothing either.
No, I agree. I think he probably will as well.
And I will say that Ruffalo actually did. I mean, he did quite a bit of campaigning for the movie throughout Phase 1.
Right, exactly. So I think that he'll be there where he needs to be is what I'm saying.
Yes, I agree. Gosh, it's so it's hard to find a category that we don't feel like is pretty closed up and locked. But let's talk about Best Actress anyway, because that's what we do.
Right.
We have so far the first awards of the season with the Globes, with Brie Larson winning. And that wasn't really a surprise for anybody, as the film had a motion picture nomination as well, and screenplay, and was a clear frontrunner. But we've got still SAG and BAFTA, and is there a potential for Ronan to get in any of those? 'Cause I don't think so.
So at SAG, I mean, it's honestly at this point, I mean, considering the way that Room performed at the Oscars, where as a film, it seemed like the Academy preferred Room, giving it, it making, acting, directing, and writing as well as Best Picture, and especially director in somewhat of a surprising manner. So they clearly were responding very strongly to the movie. But I mean, at this point, I think that Brie is the front runner, and I would be surprised to see her not win SAG. And then BAFTA, Brooklyn does get the British Film distinction. It was nominated in the British Film category there. So she definitely has a shot there to surprise. But at the same time, I don't really understand why BAFTA wouldn't just go with the Best Actress front runner at that point, which they normally do. I mean, there's always, I know people will say there was an example of like a Carey Mulligan. Of course, the Best Actress winner wasn't nominated that year, and In Education, got Best Film and Director nominations at BAFTA, which Brooklyn missed. It was clearly a bigger deal. So I don't really know why they wouldn't go for her. I mean, I guess that would probably be a closer race, I think, and we can't rule Saoirse Ronan out in it by any means. But, Room just opened on Friday in the UK to fabulous reviews, a lot of buzz for her over there, perfect timing with all of the Oscar nominations. People are seeing it. I don't know. I feel like if she is, going to continue being the front runner, she's going to win at SAG, and she's going to, continue to gain momentum, I would just think that would carry over to BAFTA as well. Although, like I said, I wouldn't roll Ronan out because Brooklyn was a popular film with that voting body as well.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with that. It's not really a fractured year for actress, so I don't see a scenario that she doesn't just steamroll.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and for Brie, it's like if the Globes, also indicated anything, it was that the media is really trying to turn her into a darling of this season. She was literally front and center everywhere. In the pre-show, it was like on the E channel and NBC News and whatnot. NBC, it was all like, we can't wait to see what Brie Larson is wearing. Like they're really trying to turn her into a media darling of the season. Like somebody that they're really trying to build her profile. So I think that we're gonna see that only continue over the next couple of weeks. That may not be as important for something like BAFTA, but I just mean for SAG and the Oscar, I think we're going to really see a strong media push around her as well as this kind of like new. I hate to use the word "it girl" because I know that Brie so eloquently denounced that term, but you get the idea.
But she's also, I think she's done a pretty fantastic job of being very, very eager and thirsty for these nominations and wins, but doing it in a way that is quite
classy,
affable and classy and sweet and very girl next door, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's also been extremely willing to be everywhere. She's shooting in Australia and she's flying back and forth to do the pieces of press that she needs to do. And other people aren't always willing, and it can never ever be underestimated how important that is, because voting bodies love to meet their stars. It's a really big deal. It's just as important as a politician in this industry. So it's a big deal, and she's everywhere.
I agree, and I do think there's an element in which Room is possibly still, a little bit underseen, I think, with some of the larger bodies and maybe some Oscar voters as well. And I think that as, these nominations kind of force people to discover it, I think that also is in her favor as more people watch it, just because I do think still at the end of the day, it's the most Oscar-friendly performance. If we look at the kind of tropes that they normally like to reward,
yes,
and that's also helpful as well for her.
Yeah, but to me, really, that was really striking watching the Globes, was what Evan just mentioned, just not even the Globes themselves, but like just the pre-show, how like the media has grabbed her and kind of ran with it. And like when we look at Best Actress in particular throughout the years, there's always this kind of sort of buzz that comes along with the Best Actress winner. Like she's kind of like, I also don't want to use the term it girl, but kind of like the girl of the moment or the woman of the moment. Kind of everyone wants to see what she's wearing. Everyone wants to see what she's doing. Everyone's kind of talking about her. It's like, and with Brie Larson, it's not like she's like a Reese Witherspoon or a Sandra Bullock who's like a big, huge name and everyone just kind of coalesces around her. This is someone who no one really even knew before this season. And already the media is kind of like hyping her up to the point where she just feels like the preordained winner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, and I hope that for her it's a good thing. And that there isn't this sort of, I don't know, backlash of any kind for her, because she seems just like quite a wonderful woman, and I do love the performance, and I would hate for it to be overhyped because, like you guys said, the film is underseen. It did just have a really good box office weekend in a minor expansion, but when you have somebody winning award after award and it's in the media all the time, and then the public at large finally gets a chance to see it, there can very often be this, okay, so that was it, sort of feeling about it. And I certainly hope it doesn't happen with this. And I hope more people do see it. I know I've read many people, including Academy voters, saying that they don't want to see it based on the subject, which we have heard many times before, and I hope that is not what most people think. And I don't think that it is, but still.
Yeah.
Although that, once again, does go to show us how useless some of these reports can be about what voters are thinking, because we hear a few reports that said, the buzz is mixed, or people aren't watching it, and then, it gets, 4 Oscar nominations, including a director nomination.
Because that just goes to show you that the preferential voting system is all that matters. You do not need to be a widely seen film. Just as long as you're a film that has enough passion and enough people that really love it, you're fine.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And I think at the beginning of the season for something like Room, that's what we all were banking on in terms of predicting it, was that it will be the kind of film that even if it's not seen by anyone, it'll generate enough passion among the people that actually watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's why I never really wavered from predicting it for Best Picture, even when it kind of when it really underperformed at the Guilds and at BAFTA. Ultimately, the Oscars were the one voting body where a movie like this would do really well. Yeah, because it's a small membership or a smaller membership, and because it's a preferential ballot.
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, even then, the PGA also uses that preferential ballot, too.
Only for the winners.
It's for the winners. That's right. You're right.
Yeah, and I think what Kenneth just said is also important to notice how much bigger the PGA was obviously a very big body, a voting body. So there could be the sense that it is among that large of a body, it is underseen, but among a smaller AMPAS voting body, that is less of an issue, perhaps.
Which is also similarly to how it did well with probably the smallest voting body of any of these major awards bodies, which is the Hollywood Foreign Press.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's and A24 also very clearly focused on campaigning for the Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, they did, and that paid off really, really well.
Yeah, but Eric, just to bring us back to Best Actress, I would say that I think that nobody could. I think it's clear that Larson is the front runner. But I don't think we can discount Saoirse Ronan. But I think obviously Room's performance in the Oscar nominations made the road for Ronan a little longer, or the mountain a little higher, whatever cliche you want to use.
Yeah. Yeah.
The water is a little rougher.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm going to start singing Diana Ross. Okay, so what do you guys then make of Scott Feinberg's prediction of Charlotte Rampling?
I love Charlotte Rampling in 45 years, but I honestly, and I would, she was fabulous in the movie, and I'm so thrilled that she was nominated.
Same.
But I really don't, putting that aside and looking at the race itself, I really don't honestly see what the path is for her. I know that some people are thinking, oh, she's like this year's Emmanuelle Riva, but I'm like, Emmanuelle Riva obviously won a BAFTA, which Charlotte Rampling didn't get nominated for, and Amour was nominated for picture, director, and writing, and was the frontrunner to win foreign language film. So I just don't see how there's that same heat behind Charlotte Rampling as a sole nominee for 45 years, which was a performance that didn't hit any precursors, even though it obviously does have passion behind it with the critics' wins.
Yeah, it's very
And that
strange.
being said, the Riva comparison also would be bizarre because Emmanuelle Riva didn't win. So why would you predict Charlotte Rampling to win?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get it at all.
Like I said, I love her, but I just don't see where she's going to be able to get the kind of momentum she would need to win an Oscar, with this being the only precursor she's nominated. I mean, to correct that, this being the only award she's nominated for, missing the precursors.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, of the five, I have her in third, even ahead of Cate Blanchett and Jennifer Lawrence. But the gap between 2 and 3 might as well be, just a million miles.
Yeah.
I mean,
Scott Feinberg, I have given him credit where credit is due. He's been really good at predicting the Oscar nominations and wins the last 3 years. I mean,
yes,
really, really good. Like he had nominations in particular. I mean, I think he didn't miss a Best Picture nominee the last 3 years. This year, however, he didn't do so well. So clearly, he's a little bit off on reading this race. So I don't know. I think Charlotte Rampling is a gutsy prediction, one that I mean, ultimately I'm rooting for Brie Larson, but I would love it if Charlotte Rampling ultimately won, but that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like it's the kind of thing that you do right out of the gate to kind of get either conversation or retweets, or, I mean, believe me, I am certainly not beneath making a crazy prediction for a goddamn retweet. Because
I believe you.
Yeah, no.
It's just one of those things that when you sit down and look at the race, it's just really difficult to see where she would be able to get that kind of momentum, because it requires a lot of momentum to win a Best Actress award at the Oscars, and oftentimes the person that gets the buzz early is the one that wins. And but I just don't see. It's just, I mean, I agree with you. She may be third in the race, but it's more of a distant third after the first two.
It is, and I wish he supplied commentary with the rankings. when I do our write-ups for the Gold Rush Gang, I try and give some perspective on why things are where they're at, you know.
Yeah,
But it's just like stuck there.
Yeah, it was very strange because it was like he obviously had Larson at number one, like for eternity before that,
Yeah.
and then Room overperformed with the Oscar nominations, and suddenly she fell to number two in favor of Charlotte Rampling. So I didn't quite get the logic behind it.
I mean,
but...
Eric is right. It's really he wanted to do something like shocking for people to kind of like pay attention and maybe kind of draw the conversation in that direction, and that's it. I ultimately think that when push comes to shove, he'll kind of go back to
probably
what's
I think
more
so.
likely.
I think so too, and I think it's also the kind of thing like I mentioned earlier about Stallone and Jennifer Jason Leigh, where the nomination was the hardest obstacle to get past, and then once you're in there, things can look a lot brighter. So I kind of get that.
Charlotte Rampling, though, she's in a much tougher category.
No, of course, it's not. But I guess I'm just trying to provide the commentary that he didn't provide.
Right. No, you're right.
Because he's.
I'm sure he is thinking that there'll be some narrative will form and take hold around her being, in this sea of younger actresses, that she is the veteran who has never been rewarded, and that type of thing. I'm assuming that's where he's coming from, but it just doesn't feel like I was saying that there is really the space there for her to take hold of this race, which is pretty clearly between two people with a front runner and then a spoiler.
Yes, and look what he did. We're talking about it right now because you go.
There you go.
But it's good. We should be talking about Charlotte Rampling. I want people to see the movie. I want people to understand exactly how devastating that performance is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the movie itself was fabulous as well. It wasn't just her. I loved the overall film as well.
Yeah, people should definitely see this movie. That's for sure.
Yeah, I would have loved to seen that been a little bit more than just Rampling. There just wasn't there wasn't much else.
Yeah,
that could have happened as it did. Wow, should we even go to Best Actor? I think we should, if for anything, to be so happy that Johnny Depp is not here.
I mean, true, but it's too bad that Johnny Depp couldn't also take Eddie Redmayne with him.
Yeah, that would have been really, really, really wonderful. I would have been happy with that. And seeing like Jacob Tremblay or Ian McKellen or Michael B. Jordan.
Honestly, like anybody.
Anybody. That's
Eddie
true.
Redmayne, it really is, I think, one of the worst Oscar nominations, in my opinion, in like years.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't and wouldn't disagree. It is wretched. It's awful.
And, I mean, looking at this lineup, I really like Matt Damon in The Martian, but looking at this, just a great movie star turn, but looking at this lineup, I mean, obviously, Leo couldn't have asked for a better lineup to win his first Oscar.
Yeah.
Not only that, but he's also in a movie with the most nominations. I mean, it's like they just slayed everybody and set the carpet out for him. Yeah,
because it's really difficult to. I mean, I know you had us do our rankings, but it's difficult to even put somebody at number two to know who's number two in this race. So. I put Fassbender because I do think there's a bit of there was some critical heat behind him, but it's almost irrelevant to rank the rest of them.
Completely irrelevant. I mean, it's very similar to last year's Best Actress race. Could you have put a number two there? I guess it was Felicity Jones, but who knows? It's just he's completely out front. There is no competition. It's completely a done deal. It's not, like no shocker would be more shocking than this.
Yeah, only one other contender in this category is also in a Best Picture nominee, and he's in the one that totally underperformed.
Yeah. No, it's over.
And Damon is also the only non-real life person in this category, and we know how very closely connected this category is to playing real life people. Yeah. So it's never ever been such a more perfect mix for him, and I love it, and he loves it. I mean, my God.
I mean, listen, good for him. Honestly, he deserves it. I'm not saying that loved this performance. I thought he was good, but it's not even about that. He deserves it. It'll be kind of like more or less a career award. But again, like I said, he earned it.
It would be really funny if both him and Mark Ruffalo won just for the amount of environmental speeches that we're going to hear for the next month and a half.
True.
My goodness. All right, let's take a stab at director, because this again. All right, so it's just me. Everybody's predicting Tom McCarthy except for me, but we're only at January 17th. Things could change. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is a really tough category, like Best Picture, that obviously will just, kind of reveal itself once PGA announces, I think.
Yeah.
As well, as we said, the same for Best Picture. I think that's also true here. And because, McCarthy may not seem like an obvious choice, but I think many are thinking that if Spotlight wins Best Picture, what would be the, impetus to give Iñárritu a second Oscar, just for directing, if the film isn't winning Best Picture? There's a sense that maybe the film would win Best Picture. Why wouldn't it just win Best Picture at that point too? But it's definitely a very close race. Obviously, we can't discount George Miller either, as we mentioned at the top of the podcast, that it also did extremely well with the Oscar nominations, with 10 nominations, including Best Picture.
Mm-hmm. And he has the most director critics wins
coming. He was definitely
the
consensus up to this point through the critics season. He was definitely the consensus choice for director. So, he's obviously in it as well.
So why couldn't this be like 12 Years a Slave, where you have a directing a film that was very difficult versus one like Spotlight, maybe that was just more staid?
I don't know. To me, 2013, that race, it was a very strange race in the sense that Best Picture and Best Director, which never really happens, were divorced from one another completely from the get-go. Like, we had 12 Years a Slave winning most of the Best Picture awards, and then, what do you call it?
Alfonso Cuarón.
Cuarón winning all of the directing awards, including the Globe and everything all the way through.
True.
Here, it's been kind of similar, but not exactly in the same sense. I just don't think that anyone really thinks that Mad Max is like the runner-up in Best Picture.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of is troublesome for George Miller. Of course, we can have a scenario where The Revenant is runner-up and Spotlight is the winner, but I just really struggle. I ultimately don't think there'll be a split in this race. I'm just not feeling. I think if Spotlight wins Best Picture, McCarthy will win, and if The Revenant wins, and if Iñárritu wins Director, then The Revenant will just win Best Picture.
Okay.
So that's just where I'm at, and I'm still. Maybe it's silly, but I'm still struggling with the fact that Iñárritu is going to win Oscars number 4 and 5 in the span of 2 years. He'll be the first director ever in that case to win not only back-to-back directing wins, but at the same time back-to-back Best Picture wins.
Yep, he will be in a category by himself, the way that David O. Russell was with nominations.
Right, exactly. And I understand that all of these trends and stats are made to be broken, but this is like really this would be really huge. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that people are unaware of that. I think most things people are kind of like, oh, I don't know about this, I don't know about that. But like, I do think that people are aware that directors don't typically win back-to-back Oscars like this, kind of sweep the Oscars in back-to-back years.
Yes. Well, the piece of trivia about this is that Iñárritu is the first director since David Lean to be nominated for Picture and Director, with the immediate follow-up after winning Picture and Director.
Right.
And that was 1962, Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah.
Although, interestingly, in that bit of that little piece, Lean won, what was this? Yeah, 7 Oscars apiece for both films, Bridge over on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia. That was interesting.
I mean, again, if there was a 5-year span like there was between those two, I could be like, fine, maybe it could happen if people really love The Revenant that much, fine. But the exact following year, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. He would have 5 Oscars in the span of 2 years.
It would be insane.
It would just be, and 2 for. I mean, it would just be. I mean, it might still happen, maybe, but I just think it's a lot. If people love the movie that much, then maybe that's the case. But I kind of also think that even with the 12 nominations, we just saw this movie yesterday. I could still see it being a bit divisive to some people.
Mm-hmm. And also, too, if it's a winner, it will break the December streak.
Right.
That's 11 years old. It will break the SAG cast streak that's 20 years old.
Right.
It's got a if it and you're ready to win, it will end up in history books.
Well, and it'll also be the worst reviewed film since Crash to win Best Picture.
Yes.
What about Adam McKay?
I don't buy it.
What about it?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, if Big Short is still a Best Picture contender, does everybody feel that if it does win, that he would just win director as well?
Probably. I don't see a split here. I think, again, we will. PGA cannot be more important if I cannot stress how important it is, basically, because that will give us such a huge indicator to where this race is going.
I definitely agree with you. I don't think it's going to be a split year too, and I absolutely agree with what you said about Mad Max not being in the same level as Gravity as like, here's the clear number 2.
Yeah.
So that is the big difference, and anytime I make the comparison to 2013, that has to be the caveat, is that there really isn't a single Gravity to make that totally accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or in the case of Argo, it just they couldn't. It had to be a split year if they were awarding it Best Picture.
Yes. Yeah. Because 2013 was actually an easy year to call as a split year, and that never happens.
Right, because it was like I said, it was basically a split from the word go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really was. Well, goodness. I guess we should get to Best Picture, and we're only like an hour into this podcast. We have a lot more we can, if we want to talk about, but I think we should dive into Best Picture a bit, because it looks like we're all in agreement in a lot of the placements. Certainly what's in last, but everyone has Spotlight winning except for me, and as the top 3, it's Spotlight, The Revenant, and The Big Short. So yeah, see, Mad Max is not even really a factor in the top 3, much less the top 2. I guess that's not too surprising, though. God, I guess maybe there isn't much to talk about with Best Picture.
I mean, there is in the sense that, like I said, I still go back to the PGA and how huge it will be for this race, in the sense that it could either tell us that, oh, all of you guys have been overreacting to all of these nominations and the Golden Globes and whatever, and Spotlight has just been the front runner all along, and it still is. Absolutely. Or it could completely throw all this upheaval into the race. Obviously, the biggest shocker would be something like The Big Short winning, or Mad Max.
Yeah,
which I don't think that will happen, but because I still think it'll be one of Spotlight or The Revenant, but. Clearly, I think whichever film wins that will really solidify itself as the pretty strong front runner in that case.
Yeah, and by the way, the Producers Guild is next Saturday, so it's only 6 days away before we have our first clear idea of this race. Because Golden Globes are what they are, but they are not industry. So the PGA is going to give us our first real idea of what's going on.
And PGA really has been, I think, has become, in a way, the most important precursor in terms of determining what wins Best Picture, for sure. It used to be DGA years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
This one. It's just last year it completely turned the race. In 2010 with the King's Speech, it turned the race. Even in 2009 with the Hurt Locker, everyone thought the Aviator would win, and once the Hurt Locker won that, I'm sorry, excuse me, Avatar. I thought everyone thought Avatar would win, and once that didn't, then and the Hurt Locker did, the race was basically over.
It was that was a pretty serious turn at that point because everybody just kind of thought, okay, Producers Guild, these are money people, and Avatar made the most money, it's going to win, and Hurt Locker has the least amount, and who cares? And that was a huge turning point. That
was really big, and the same thing with the King's Speech and the Social Network. Once the Social Network won the Globe, the race was everyone was like, it's done, it's over. And that didn't happen. Same thing with Boyhood. Even a couple of years ago with American Hustle, a lot of people thought that would win, that didn't. And then with that crazy tie, it's just been such a insane precursor that it's very telling for ultimately what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, geez. Is there anything else that we want to discuss? I think maybe we can go into some other categories. You know what, actually, since we're talking about the PGA and it's next week, and I don't think we're going to have another podcast before that, I think we need to give our PGA predictions. I think it's important. Because we'll probably get another podcast then Sunday, the day after the PGA winner. So, I'm
going with Spotlight.
Okay.
As am I, just because I'm still on the Spotlight as winning Best Picture train, and I really do think that whoever wins the PGA will ultimately win Best Picture.
I do too, and I'm picking the Revenant.
Revenant would be my alternate there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then Big Short third after that.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
But it is interesting looking at the Gold Rush predictions. It is all over the place.
It is. I'm a little surprised, and I'm really
between those three films.
I'm happy to see that because it means that a few people are going to do really well, and a few are going to do really poorly. I'm just hoping I'm on the right side of history, and I usually am not. So
Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, you need to do that gut check. Be like, wait, I'm predicting something different from everybody else. That's
exactly.
That's probably a mistake.
I'm like, let me look at the top 10 players right now. What are you picking? Oh, that's right. Okay, here we go. Yeah. I need to stop taking all those risks. It's a mess.
But that's also part of the fun, though. Is when those risks pay off.
It is. It's just too few and far between with me. Right.
I will say this though, just one thing that I did want to say is that going into the Oscars, I thought it would be a total free for all, and it would be all over the place, and just somehow the consensus held up. I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten 19 out of 20 acting nominations right, and this was the first year that's happened, and that was this year of all years.
Of all years, yeah, with category fraud being so potentially disruptive, and ended up not being at all.
Yeah, so it was just. But just going forward, I do think that if this year was the year that they completely said, I'm okay with category fraud, I think that any year from now on, we should just defer to wherever they're being campaigned.
I agree.
And I would just like to give a shout out to AwardsWatch in general, because I think that, a lot of the other pundits were very quick to jump on I'm going to predict Alicia Vikander in lead actress, and, but I think that why I was giving AwardsWatch a shout out was that I think that a lot of the members did a lot of research there to figure out, how the BAFTA nomination came about and how the voting was different, and how that voting process is different than what would happen at the Oscars, and how, kind of basically when laying out the reasons for not predicting her for lead actress, which were actually very compelling when they were laid out. And I think mostly everybody at AwardsWatch kept her in supporting actress, and it ended up, I think we were one of the few, most pundits had her in lead actress. We were one of the few that kept her in supporting for the Danish.
Yeah, like a shocker. We got Best Actress completely correct, down the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was
shocking.
That was kind of exactly. And two Gold Rush gang members ended up being the top two performers at Gold Derby's contest.
True.
So that was Adam and Jason, which is fantastic. So I'm just saying, if people kind of want to know, then maybe they should just look at AwardsWatch, because you're right, Evan. There is a tremendous amount of research and analysis and logical thinking to most people's predictions. It's not just like, I think this is going to. And it's also not as limited as saying, okay, the Ampus body is 65% male and 90% over 100 years old. So, yay, let's do this. It's not that willy-nilly. It's we kind of take it seriously. And it pays off for people in a big way.
I mean, and this is not the best example, but something like costume design, where I don't think we ended up getting that fifth nominee right, but everybody posting it. We spent, I don't know, people spent half a day trying to analyze that race. But what we knew was that the prediction for something like Brooklyn and costume design was incredibly lazy, given the history of the costume design branch and like what they nominate.
Yes,
and that we knew it wasn't. Most people were in agreement that it wasn't getting nominated. It was just trying to figure out what would. But as I looked at, what others were predicting outside of AwardsWatch, I kept seeing this predicted for costume design, and it felt like such kind of, like kind of lazy groupthink from everybody that, of course, this is going to get nominated when it, if you look at what that branch typically nominates, it didn't really make any sense.
Right.
Despite getting, a BAFTA nomination or whatever.
Because I think that we realize that these branches are very insular and they nominate the same kind of people for similar work. And I think that we did a lot of research into not only the films, because I think that's what everyone kind of seems to think about when they predict text. We need to look at the films that are kind of popular. But it's not only that, it's the names. Who are the people working on these films? That's very important.
Absolutely. And it only takes 20 people to nominate you for costume design. It's a tiny branch.
Right. Exactly.
And that's why Sandy Powell gets dual nominated. That's why she has 115 nominations.
Or Jenny Bevan, or,
And that goes for multiple categories.
Whatever.
That's why everybody was able to easily predict, like, Bridge of Spies for sound mixing, because it was Gary Rydstrom.
Right.
It's like, and Roger Deakins and Thomas Newman. It's like, these are people that get nominated within their branches.
And the Sicario sound editing team, who's won 2 Oscars and things like that. So it was
exactly.
I thought that the level of research in the final days before the Oscar nominations was quite impressive from basically everyone at AwardsWatch.
I mean, it gave me a migraine because I couldn't keep up with every single post that was. I mean, literally, I needed a glass of wine as I was reading that thread, but because my head was spinning. But I needed to, I literally had to step away for a couple of hours because I was like, I'm basically done.
I know.
3 hours to the deadline, and suddenly, Janet Patterson makes the most sense of the nominee for the Madden crowd.
That was so upsetting, just having to then, put her in and think about her and just be like, oh my God, why is costume design of all things turning my head inside out?
And poor Janet Patterson, this is her first missed nomination for a period drama.
Yeah,
poor thing.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and poor me for having her in, because I'm an idiot. I totally just got suckered right into there. But I think it's because, I don't recall, and I know we have a lot of participants in Cold Rush, but I didn't recall seeing The Revenant as a choice.
No, even though Jacqueline West is a former nominee.
Yep.
Right?
But that's because I don't think anybody anticipated quite how big of a nomination Hall was going to have.
Yeah, exactly. I don't recall, during those, 12-hour discussions of costume design, I don't recall it coming up once.
True, I at this point, I know every single stitch of the dress that Eddie Redmayne touched, but...
Basically. We talked more about these nominations than the people that nominated the fucking movies.
Oh, that is without a doubt. And we thought through all of this a lot more than they did. They just put down 5 names.
That too. Oh my God. Exactly.
And what's worse is there's only 20 people. You're basically trying to figure out 20 people what 20 people voted for.
Seriously, at that point, we could have gone to like all of their houses or emailed them all.
Exactly. I mean, really.
In a day. Oh, that was a mess. I want to talk a little bit about original score. I want to get, maybe do some, since we just went so far into costume design to just do a little bit of tech talk, because I think all of us, all of us have Ennio Morricone winning for The Hateful Eight. Is that a done deal? Do we feel like that's it?
Well, I will give you this little tidbit of trivia. I'm not sure what year it was, but it's been a while since a film not nominated for Best Picture won this category. Mm-hmm. The only Best Picture nominee in this category is Bridge of Spies. Now, I don't think Bridge of Spies is winning, so I guess we're going to break that trend. But the thing, of course, to remember with the tech categories always is that the name of the person does not appear on the ballot. It's just the film.
Correct.
But I think at this point, most people at least know that Ennio Morricone came out of retirement essentially to score this movie. So I think that people know that he scored that. And I think people know that John Williams obviously scored Star Wars.
Yes.
In fact, I think many people might probably think that he also scored Bridge of Spies just because of his relationship with Spielberg.
Yeah. Early predictions for Bridge of Spies, I mean, early
right.
in the year, were on the assumption that John Williams was going to score, and he was going to. So
exactly. So
it's funny. It's funny though that, like you mentioned, the only Best Picture nominee in this category is Bridge of Spies, and the composer is Thomas Newman,
right?
Who is one of those been nominated 13 times and never won.
So I think if there's a shocker in this category, it's probably that. For those reasons, I don't think it'll happen, but they always give us a Lincoln somewhere. Lincoln winning production design, like what? So It's kind of like these kind of things happen in the tech category sometimes, where there's like a front runner, but not like a total stone cold lock, which I wouldn't call The Hateful Eight here. That I mean, he's definitely the front runner, Morricone, but
yeah,
I could see him lose as well. I could honestly see John Williams win for Star Wars.
Well, I'm looking at everybody's rankings too, and James actually has Bridge of Spies at number 2, so he's working on that theory that you just mentioned about Best Picture here. Very interesting.
Yeah, but just going back to Star Wars for a second, in general, I think it's very strange that the highest grossing film of all time is like, usually you would think, it made so much money, it's the biggest grossing film ever, it's like a tech juggernaut, it's going to win some kind of tech categories, but then it's unfortunately up against two films this year that are Best Picture, top 5 Best Picture nominees that have swept the tech categories. Mm-hmm. So it's almost looking like it might go home empty-handed, which is kind of strange.
It's super strange that it's sort of kind of underperformed.
Yeah.
And that's because of the other two, those other two films.
Because normally you would at the very least mark this off for the 2 sound categories and visual effects, done deal, moving on.
Yeah.
But this year it's not even the case. And as much as I kind of almost want to predict Star Wars in visual effects, but then when you look at that category, when there's a Best Picture nominee in that category, that film 9 times out of 10, if not even more so, tends to win.
1970.
There you go.
1970.
So in that case, you would think either Mad Max or The Revenant, but if it's between those two, Mad Max clearly wins. Mm-hmm. Visual effects.
Yeah.
Even though I will say that the visual effects in The Revenant are very, very impressive.
Save for one moment, for one thing with that horse. Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
That was a pretty... Yeah, the horse being shot, that was a really bad...
Yeah.
Visual effect. Everything else is great. I mean, obviously, the bear is amazing.
Well, that's really the showpiece, and that bear was mean. That looked completely real to me.
Yeah, it was, and it was long. It wasn't just like, oh wow, that was kind of neat. No, it was like a freaking 5-minute sequence.
I mean, ultimately, I don't think it'll win that category because I think that this category usually equates with not even best, but most visual effects. And I think that that's why it's between Star Wars and Mad Max. But I would give Mad Max the edge because it's a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah, I agree. And that's actually looking at that category. Everybody agrees. Everyone has Mad Max at number 1 and everybody has Star Wars at number 2.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. And everybody has Ex Machina at 5. And then The Martian and The Revenant are a little back and forth.
Yeah.
Between 3 and 4.
Yeah. And I would say, if anything is going to break the assumption that
a Best Picture nominee will win that category, it would be something like Star Wars, the now the biggest film of all time in the United States. So
Right.
Yes.
Right.
it makes sense as a 1 and 2.
Yeah. But going back to score for just 1 second, I do think that John Williams, who hasn't won in a very long time, and who's obviously already at this point really slowing his career down and working much, much less, I could potentially see him winning for, like Evan said, the biggest film of all time. In a category that's not super duper strong.
Yeah.
Even though I would still predict Morricone.
Yeah. It'll take me a lot to bump him off of there. But yeah, so God, he hasn't won since, goodness gracious, since Schindler's List.
Which is 20 plus years.
Wow.
And he's on his 50th nomination.
50th, yeah.
Take that, Meryl Streep.
Oh my God. Well, if Meryl Streep could be nominated more than once in a year, she might be close to 50.
That is actually accurate.
So,
Well, I mean, right, yeah, so that's probably true.
yeah, I mean, he has more double nominations than anybody that I can think of, except for
Yeah.
maybe like Edith Head.
Right, and then in not even that, he potentially could have gotten 3 nominations in some years because he also wrote songs.
He did. In 96, he has 3,
Right, there you go.
which is insane. My God. He's just, talk about a juggernaut
I mean,
of a person. That's,
right.
Oh my God. And 1, 2, and 3 in 1974. My God. I could spend more time than necessary just looking at his awards list because
Well, just scrolling down his IMDb page is like, I need like an hour just to get from like the Academy Awards to the BAFTAs.
yeah, it is. It's a long road. My goodness. Yeah, I can see a path there. I can see where he kind of breaks that mold. But then, there's weird things that Star Wars missed, like production design. How did it miss that?
Honestly, that's really unfortunate because I thought its production design was like outstanding.
Yeah, I thought it was the best in the field. And then it gets film editing.
Right. I mean, strange.
It's like it flip flopped with The Martian there or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah,
It's very
very
weird.
strange.
I do like that the film editing category has 3 women in it. That's kind of awesome.
That's great, and a lot of female writers nominated, and of course Emma Donoghue being the first woman to be nominated for adapting her own novel.
There's
So-
yeah.
There were moments.
There were moments of really good things like that. And like I said at the top, there's been more than enough exhaustive commentary. I did my own for what it was worth, and
Right.
there's certainly a lot going on in the AwardsWatch forum, so if you want to participate in that, because yes, God knows we need more people talking about extreme viewpoints of race, gender, and sexuality in the forums, then please be my guest.
But I mean, I do think that there needs to be, the conversation needs to be had, and I'm glad that it's happening, even though a lot of it is very polarized.
Yes.
But it's good that it's actually, it's good that there's some sort of discourse, because just to kind of say, oh, this happens and kind of move on is not good either.
No, it's not. But one of the things that I found really frustrating in trying to parse out my thoughts about it was that it's not just there are no people of color nominated in the acting categories. It's also gender. It's also sexuality. It's also, that's more than like a single conversation. That's 3 different conversations to be had.
Yeah, well, listen, the film industry really is one of the kind of sort of last great sort of bastions of like white men. So it's going to take a while to sort of to break it down, but I'm going to be optimistic and say that it'll happen at some point.
I think so too, because everything like that happens at some point.
Right.
Once they start dying out.
Well, yeah, it's that, or maybe if the Board of Governors decides, to do something really intelligent, like take away lifetime memberships, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I think the lifetime membership is the thing that has destroyed the ability for true diversity in nominations and in winners.
Yeah. But I mean, right. But of course, it's also the Board of Governors consist of Academy members, and they would have to limit their own, sort of rights to that. And I think that that's where the problem comes in. I just think that there's a lot of perks with being an Academy member that they are not going to want to give up. Not only the perks, but also prestige.
Absolutely. It's like asking senators to vote, against them having, benefits and salaries for the rest of their lives, even if they've only been a single-term senator.
Right.
Who is going to vote against their own insanely selfish best interest?
Right.
Not most people.
Right. But I just think that then if they're not going to do that, then I think they need to take it upon themselves to invite more diverse people in with more diverse points of view year after year after year, and then hopefully that would sort of allow once the membership does change for these kind of movies actually to get watched and then to get voted on, just because the points of view within the Academy will finally change, and there will be more interest in these kind of films.
Absolutely, and that does happen every year. I always love seeing who the invitees are every year, because we do see youth and gender and race being able to infiltrate that group every single year. And I think it's really important too for people to also enter the most advantageous branch, directing versus writing, that kind of thing.
Right.
To have more impact. If you're a writer director and you are a woman or a person of color or
go to the
lesbian or something, then go to the goddamn director's branch.
Absolutely. I mean because that has to. I mean, we were kind of sort of brainstorming yesterday just about how many women and or people of color we can name in the director's branch, and one hand.
Yeah.
So that has to be the oldest and the whitest of the branches.
It is. Yet at the same time, they are the most willing to step outside the box, way more than Best Picture, than the group at large.
Yeah.
We have gotten John Singleton there, and
True.
That was forever ago. But then it's like, I mean, it's really kind of sad when something like that happens, and it's really, really exciting, and everybody gets to write think pieces like, oh my God, everything's changed. Look at this happened. And then it doesn't happen again for 10 years, 15 years, and it was just an anomaly. It's kind of heartbreaking.
And I also think it's really important to take a look at the type of films that they nominate. Again, things like The Help and Precious, it's very much a reflection of how they think of people of color. Yes.
I'm sure you guys might have seen that post in the conversation in the forums about the Oscar nominations, where it broke down all of the acting winners that are people of color and the roles that they had.
Yeah.
It was not pretty.
Right.
It was bad. It was criminals, maids, slaves.
Right.
But, at the same time, my response to that was, yes, obviously we're looking at what roles are available to anybody that's non-white. And if you're doing anything within a historical context, people of color have a very limited scope of what they're going to have available to them in a role. They're not going to be presidents and inventors and leaders of any kind. That's historically white people.
Right. So, that's really the thing, is that hopefully as time moves on and that changes, and more so what changes is the roles that are offered. I mean, that really is the root of the problem. It's not necessarily so much as that they're not nominating them. The roles really aren't there in the same kind of way. And then the flip side of that is that when they are there, they aren't paying the same kind of attention to them.
Yes. And it's to me, when I see lists like that, it makes me want, far fewer biopics and any historical, kind of films. I want to see contemporary and original works, so that something like race and gender and sexuality is not an integral part of the story that has to be told
Right.
with something that's historical.
Right. Well, I mean, and even then, because these biopics are made is because quote unquote they're Academy friendly and they're gonna get Oscar buzz and they're gonna get nominations.
Yeah.
So maybe if the Academy somehow from within just tries to make an effort every year to maybe look at or nominate a different kind of film, and we're gonna sort of start to move away from that kind of mold of this is Oscar bait and kind of change what Oscar bait means. Maybe then we can have a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it goes back, and I think it goes back to the studios themselves. Why does WB choose to prioritize Black Mass over Creed when they start campaigning, or those types of things as well.
Yep.
And I do think as an Oscar voter, you should have, I know this has been discussed before, but you should, I would think, have some responsibility to look at what you're nominating, and if it isn't diverse, ask yourself, why is that? Is it that I didn't that I saw every film nominated and these were the 20 that I thought were better, or were there film star with diverse cast or diverse subjects that I didn't see because for whatever reason that I should actively seek out as a responsible voter?
Absolutely, and it's not even for a moment about nominating something that you don't like because you think that you should.
Exactly.
It's about giving it the opportunity to be seen, and that's it. If you watched Creed and didn't like it, then don't fucking vote for it. But don't not watch it because you only want to have your little tiny pile of things that you're going to look through.
And as an Academy member, if I look at my 20 nominated performances and I only see white people, and I think to myself, well, but it's just because I didn't really see anything with black people or any other kind of people this year that was worthy, then you know what? Then you need to step back and take a look and say, well, why is that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it because maybe we're not giving them the roles that we should be giving them?
We have seen
the opportunities that we're giving them?
Yeah, we've seen enough pictures on Twitter of people taking, photographs of all the screeners that they have. The movies are in there.
Right.
You just need to watch them. So that's our message to the Academy.
Yeah.
Watch some fucking movies. It's your job.
Really?
Hey, we might be able to end on that.
That's the perfect message to end on.
I think it is. I think we actually got to talk about the controversy in a way that was really kind of the way that I would like to have talked about it. So I feel pretty comfortable ending there. Unless you guys have any final words. Any? Nothing?
No, I think we did a good job of covering the nominations as well as the fallout, so to speak.
Yes, I think so too. And like we talked about halfway through, the Producers Guild Awards are next Saturday. We'll try and get another podcast going the day after that, or at least a shitload of commentary. But until then, I'm going to try and get these early winner predictions up from the Gold Rush gang. We did talk about them a little bit in the podcast, but as always, come and check out awardswatch.com. Come into the forums if you want to have some really heated, fiery debate and conversation. Or if you just want to find out who everybody wants to have a threesome with of the acting nominees. Because that's a pretty fun thread, too, every year. And
basically, whatever your speed is, have it.
Exactly. There's someone for everyone. Well, almost. If you like really white people, then there is.
That's true.
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at awards_watch and like us on Facebook and Instagram. I need to get more pictures up there. I'm going to try and do that as well. But until next time, thank you very much, Evan and Kenneth, for joining me this afternoon. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye, everybody.